although it's very difficult right now, in 5 years' time, you'll look back, they often say that the most difficult times strike you as the most beautiful in years to come. In many years' time, you can reflect and go, that was my shipwreck. This breakup, this job loss, this struggle, whatever it is, that was my shipwreck. And look at me now. Welcome back to episode 2 of 100 Stoic School with myself, William Mulligan, author of the Everyday Stoic, Simple Rules for a Good Life. Stoicism has been described as the guide to the good life. And once you finish this series, you'll fully understand the philosophy of Stoicism and how to incorporate it into your life so that you can become the best version of yourself, so that you can become a Stoic, which is a cool way of saying you'll be calmer, happier, more successful, more fulfilled. Stoicism is the guide to the good life. And here I am sharing this guide with you. Today's episode is powered by Huel. Let's jump into the episode. So, who is the genius behind Stoicism? When you first learn about this philosophy, many people say, oh, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, because these are the 3 most famous Stoics. They have so much surviving work and they've influenced Stoicism so much. They've influenced millions of people. And their works still have a huge impact on our lives today. But none of these 3 men are the founders of Stoicism. This man, the founder, would come almost 300 years before any of these people. And to explain who this man was and to explain his story, I'll read a passage from my book, which is the beginning of this man's journey and the beginning of Stoicism. He is the first ever Stoic, and this is around 300 BC. The waves were high on the wine-dark sea, and the weather was getting worse. The ship, laden with valuable cargo, tumbled about the waters, smashing with enormous force against the rocks, until the hardwood hull could take no more. With terrible noises of crunching and tearing, the ship broke apart, and the cargo was lost to the bottom of the Aegean Sea. Somehow, the owner of the cargo survived. Battered and half drowned, Zeno, a previously wealthy merchant, now made penniless. He made his way into the city of Athens and visited, as you would after surviving a shipwreck, a bookshop. There, he didn't despair about his money having entirely vanished in one bad sea trip, but fell into conversation with the bookshop owner about the latest philosophical teachings. Perhaps stunned by being the sole survivor of the wreck and being surrounded by intense debate around existence, Zeno began to develop his own philosophy. His followers came to be known as the Stoics, after the Stoa Poikile, which is the pink-covered walkway in the public space of ancient Athens, where Zeno and his followers met each day. So that's kind of the story of how Stoicism came to be. And there are many little details and cool anecdotes about Zeno visiting the Delphic Oracle. And the Delphic Oracle said, don't dye your lives with the dyes of dead shellfish, but with the thoughts of dead men. And this was actually huge to Zeno. It was a huge thing. It actually what led to him starting Stoicism. But why would the Delphic Oracle say these things? Well, Zeno's cargo, the expensive cargo, was it full of gold, silver, rum? No, it was full of the carcasses of dead murex sea snails. So what they'll do is they grind it up and then they use this as a dye, which was the brilliant blue dye that the rich people wore, basically. So don't dye your lives with this dye it with the thoughts of dead men. And when Zeno was in the bookshop, he learned of Socrates, who was a dead man. And then he thought, the thoughts of Socrates. You get it? He's dyeing his life with the thoughts of Socrates, a dead man. And then he went out and he learned a lot of his philosophy from the Cynics. So Cynicism is kind of related to Stoicism in a way. At the beginning, many of the teachings were very similar. It branched off a lot, but he studied under Crates the Cynic, and then he developed his own philosophy, which was known as Zenonianism, which is a terrible name. And they didn't want to develop a cult-like following, so they changed it to Stoicism after the Stoic Proclay, where they taught. What's funny is Zeno went through all this trouble. He went through a horrible voyage, lost everything, almost lost his life. And he is quoted saying, it's believed he said this, "I made a prosperous voyage when I was shipwrecked." And people loved his teachings because he made self-awareness simple. He made life seem more simple. And his three main teachings were the pursuit of pleasure causes harm, attachment causes harm, and to live in accordance with reason, as this is what makes us human, and it is going against animalistic impulses. So to add to that, the ancient writer Diogenes Laertius, who preserved many of Zeno's teachings, said in his Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers that Zeno claimed, "As for the assertion made by some people that pleasure is the object to which the first impulse of animals is directed, it is shown by the Stoics to be false. For pleasure, if it is really felt, but declared to be a byproduct which never comes into nature by itself, has sought and found the means suitable to the animal's existence or constitution. It is an aftermath comparable to the condition of animals thriving and plants in full bloom. And nature, they say, made no difference originally between plants and animals, for she regulates the life of plants too, in their case without impulse and sensation, just as also certain processes go on of a vegetative kind in us. But when in the case of animals, impulse has been superadded, whereby they are unable to go in quest of their proper ailment. For them, say the Stoics, nature's rule is to follow the direction of impulse. But when reason, by way of a more perfect leadership, has been bestowed on the beings we call rational, for them life, according to reason, rightly becomes the natural life. For reason supervenes to shape impulse scientifically. So it was clear to Zeno that most people of Athens suffered because they desired what they did not have, or they feared losing what they love. And this is become very clear in the Stoics, that attachment causes harm. Expectation causes harm. They can cause harm. Because when you become attached, say, I become attached to my phone, looking for an object to grab. I become attached to my phone and I add the weight of my emotions to the phone. My happiness is tied to the phone. My well-being is tied to the phone. So without the phone, these cords are severed and I lose the emotions that I hung on this phone. And it's the same with relationships. When we become attached to relationships, when these cords are severed, we lose much of the things we hung on them. So basically, do not hang your life on external things outside of your control because, as the Stoics say, nothing is permanent. Everything is changing. We lose these things and we don't want to lose parts of us that we attach to these things. A quick word from our sponsor, Huel. I really like Huel. When I was writing my book, I was using Huel to power me through every single day. When I had my daily greens, when I had my meals, when I had my shakes, it stopped me from going to the shop, buying a load of rubbish, buying a load of unhealthy food, wasting loads of money. And these things do add up. Those quick journeys to the shop every day, the money adds up, the unhealthy foods add up, the wasted time adds up. So if I ever get those cravings, I grab a Huel and it fills my cravings. I feel good, it tastes delicious, it's quick and easy. And if you have any interest in the Huel products, then check the link in the description. Let's get back to the episode. Some of my favorite quotes by Zeno: better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen more than we say. If you lay violent hands on me, you'll have my body, but my mind will remain with Stilpo. Happiness is a good flow of life. A bad feeling is a commotion of the mind, repugnant to reason and against nature. And my favorite, well-being is realized by small steps, but is truly no small thing. Zeno actually wrote his own republic. So Plato wrote a republic, and it's this perfect, ideal utopia. He wrote it and he believed if humans could live like this, it's a perfect utopia. Zeno actually tried to rival this and wrote his own republic. Zeno's republic is a utopia whose citizens claim the universe as their home and where everyone lives in accordance with natural laws and rational understanding. Men and women were completely equal in society's eyes, and there was no injustice because all actions proceeded from reason. There were no laws necessary because there was no crime, and because everyone's needs were taken care of in the same way that animals are in nature. There was no greed, nor covetousness, nor hatred of any kind. Love governed all things, and everyone living in this cosmopolis understood they had what they needed and wanted for nothing more. It is thought that this vision was largely inspired by Crates' life and that of his wife Hipparchia of Moroni, who lived on completely equal terms with him, wore men's clothes and taught philosophy to men. Crates and Hipparchia lived their lives in accordance with the simplicity of reason, and Zeno's vision in his Republic reflects that view. So, one thing interesting about the Stoics, and they got a lot of this from the Cynics, is they've seen everyone as equal. Basically, the only thing that makes you good is virtue, because it's within your control. Your looks, your wealth, your reputation, all these kind of things, where you're from, your skin color, your ableness, if you're disabled or not. All of these things are outside of your control. They're handed to you by life, but you can choose whether to act on reason. It's the gift from Zeus, and virtue is the only good because we can control being virtuous rather than acting on vice. So the Cynics believed this to a ridiculous extent, where you had some Cynics like Diogenes, a Cynic who would walk around naked. He would display himself in public. He would act like a dog. He would bark at people. He would pee where he wants, because he was against social norms, all this. He just believed of acting on his nature. So he took it way too far, I believe. But believing that virtue is the only good, that you can't judge anyone off anything else except virtue, led to a lot of equality, as here with Crates and Hipparchia. They seen themselves as equal, man and woman, and they were equal. And I know that doesn't sound revolutionary, but back then, this was huge. Women and men were quite separate, and men were seen as much more better, and they ruled over everything. And philosophy wasn't taught really to women. It was reserved for the wealthy elite, for these rich men in power. But Zeno, after learning from the Cynics, he went out into the public. This is what I love about Stoicism, and it's why I'm trying to do what I do, is to teach everyone. Zeno went out in the public and taught anyone, because he believed that these teachings that he'd learned, that helped him, these were the guides to the good life. Why should they be reserved for only the wealthy, the elite, for a select few? They should be for everyone, because, as the Stoics believed, we're all interconnected within the cosmic nature. All our natures are meshed together like fabric. So being good for one person is being good for yourself in a kind of way. It's like a cosmic community. By looking after each other, you're looking after your own community that you're a part of. So they believed that virtue was the only good. So the next time you're going through some sort of difficulty, you're going through some trials, obstacles, and hardships in your life, you have to think about Zeno. This is something that gets me through difficulties. Is his greatest hardship the chaos that ensued in his life, the shipwreck? He lost everything. He was this wealthy guy right up here, and he lost everything, almost died, lost everything. And he said that this was a great gift, because this is amazing. His suffering led to me sitting here teaching you Stoicism, and Stoicism changed my life. It saved so many lives. If he didn't get in that shipwreck, he would have never taught me. In a sense, so when you're going through difficulty, remember Zeno's shipwreck, and just think although it's very difficult right now, in 5 years' time, you'll look back, they often say that the most difficult times strike you as the most beautiful in years to come. In many years' time, you can reflect and go, that was my shipwreck. This breakup, this job loss, this struggle, whatever it is, that was my shipwreck. And look at me now. I founded Stoicism. Oh, you did something really cool. So that is it for day 2 of 100 Stoic School with myself, William Mulligan. I'm doing a new lesson for 100 days on Stoicism. The idea is by the time you get to episode 100, lesson 100, you will know more about Stoicism than anyone on the internet. I'm getting rid of all these myths that you're hearing about Stoicism, because all the stuff you're hearing about Stoicism, most of it is false. It's just false understanding. So I'm clearing it all up. But the most important thing is by day 100 or by day 20, you'll start to soak up Stoicism. You'll become a Stoic. And I can't tell you how much it's changed my life. And I get messages all the time. It's like, oh, because of this lesson, I no longer have the crippling anxiety. Because of this lesson, I did the thing I wanted to do, or I no longer worry about this, or I'm confident now, I'm happy now, I'm balanced now, I'm a better person. So the goal is by the time you start getting into lessons, you'll understand everything, you'll feel better. So if you want to support me and what I'm doing, it is free. Just give me a rating or subscribe. And if you're feeling really generous and you want to help me out and you want to help out a friend, introduce them to Stoic School, get them involved. Maybe the greatest gift you can give. And I'm tooting my own horn there, but it can really help people. Stoicism specifically. I'm not saying I can help people. Stoicism can help people. I'm just the vessel. I'm the voice that can explain it in a way that's understandable, because these ancient texts can be a bit complicated. So find your friend, introduce them to Stoic School. It really helps me and it will really help them. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next lesson.